As the rhetoric escalates, the narrative remains the same. North Korea's official name is Democratic People's Republic of Korea, DPRK, a nation roughly the size of Mississippi, at best, a nuisance, at worst, a very dangerous threat, in a part of the world that is intrinsically linked to the global economy and geopolitical sensitivities. Surrounded by China, Russia, Japan, and South Korea. It is a totalitarian police state with self-imposed isolation from outsiders, secretive and brutal, and a nuclear weapons program that has accelerated faster than Western intelligence thought possible. Nationalistic and scarred from foreign invasions, occupation, and division. Most North Koreans are not allowed to travel outside the country. Just asking can get you interrogated, or worse. Traveling within the country requires strict permissions, and only the elite and party faithful live in the capital, Pyongyang, and a select few of them have access to the internet. But beyond the saber-rattling and headlines, they are a people we rarely get a glimpse of, and they rarely get a glimpse of us. Accessing news of the outside world is virtually impossible. The state-run media controls every message, where propaganda is not a dirty word.
There's always a mass military parade, these mass games they hold in their football stadium. It's like a wonder of the world. There's 150,000 citizens, I think, come into the stadium, fill the entire stands, and they hold these books of colored paper and flip them. So each person is sort of a pixel in these mass mosaics of propaganda. They're amazing to witness.
The images project order, strength, and devotion, carefully scripted to project the regime's desired image of itself, a modern, prosperous world power. But David Gudenfelder tells a different story.
I spent most of my adult life covering wars not only in Africa, but all across the Middle East, Afghanistan, Iraq. You go to a big world event thinking you're going to cover the big picture. You end up inevitably only telling the stories of a few people who are right in front of your eyes.
After 5 years as a freelance and staff photographer for the Associated Press, Gudenfelder was eventually assigned as the AP's chief Asia photographer.
When I first moved to Japan, there were these two major news stories. One was an ongoing violent military coup in Fiji, and the other was family reunions between North and South Koreans at a hotel in Seoul. I just assumed, because I had been a conflict photographer for so long, that my bosses would put me on a plane for Fiji, but in fact, they wanted me to go to South Korea to cover the family reunions, and I was a bit naive. I didn't fully understand the history of the Korean Peninsula, and I didn't know what I was about to see when I went there.
The family reunions between the North and South in 2000 were intended as a way for North Korea to soften relations with the South in an effort to tie into its economic engine. Instead, it was a painful reminder of a people divided.
I saw one moving episode after another. Families come together for the first time in 5 decades. Brothers who had not seen each other, who are now grown, old. There was a mother, very old now, and almost completely blind, and she was putting her hands on the face of her son for the first time in 50 years, trying to remember what he looked like. These families were only given 3 days, and then they were pulled apart again and sent back, and they would never see one another again. So I left those 3 days wanting to understand much more about Korea.